Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports. And as you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today we're going to be breaking down some film on Saquon Barkley. So we're going to get straight to it, man. So the very first play, we got a red area possession. You know, I always emphasize the importance of the red area. I'm going to continue to because the red area is very important. You know, in my opinion, you always hear me talk about got to have it situations, which are typically third down and fourth down situations. But in my opinion, when you get down this far, every down, whether it's first, second, or third or fourth down, is a got to have it when you get down here in the red area. So right here, you have a 2nd and 11. You got Saquon Barkley. So obviously we know that one way to score, the easiest way to score when you get down in a red area, obviously, is running the ball because you don't have to worry about throwing it in a tight, confined space, right? So that's the thing, that's the benefit that you have with Saquon, right? You have the option to be able to run the ball in with him or even run the ball in with Jalen, but then you also have the option to utilize him as a receiver, especially if you can get a favorable matchup like him matched up in man coverage with a linebacker like how they do right here. And it's like they're backing the shotgun, obviously. So when they're playing man across the board, so you pretty much know that there's man. So the linebackers are going to be manned up with Saquon, and they kind of just send Saquon from the right side, lined up right next to Jalen Hurts, and just send him kind of across the formation. And even from a leverage standpoint, the linebacker kind of was already beat. But Saquon right here, man, shows his receiver ability. I mean, just look at this pass. For one, this is a phenomenal pass by Jalen. Jalen just did a good job of just kind of throwing it to the pylon, and Saquon did a good job of just being able to track the ball, having the ball skills to be able to track the ball, but then being able to go up and make the catch at his highest point. But not only that, to be able to get both feet down for a touchdown is insane, especially coming from a running back. These are skills we normally see from receivers or tight ends. Running backs typically don't run these type of routes, but when you got a guy like Saquon, this is the type of versatility that he brings to an offense. He can give you so many different options, and it's like an offensive play caller's dream, having a guy like him, because he just gives you so many possibilities. So you remember in the previous clip where I talked about the easiest way to score in a red area is just running the ball in, just because you don't have to worry about throwing in those tight confinements, those tight spaces. So right here, Saquon does just that. They run an inside zone play. You see that they had 2 tight ends in, and they were lined up on one side. Obviously, they're trying to create double team blocks. They're trying to get to where one guy engages with the blocker, the other guy kind of chips and climbs and gets to the next level to try to create running lanes vertically down the field. Saquon just does a good job at doing what Saquon does with just making this linebacker miss. You see the linebacker shot the hole. He's seen it. He was able to beat the offensive lineman there. But when you got a player like Saquon Barkley, even if you make the right play to make the right read, getting there and trying to make a play on him is easier said than done. And right here, he shows you why. He just pretty much puts him on skates right here, coming through the gap. He just pretty much puts him on skates and just able to accelerate and get into the end zone before the defense is able to close in on him. So right here, you got them in a shotgun again. So this looks like this was an outside zone. And one way that you can kind of identify what it is, if it's an outside zone, you will see the offensive line blocking horizontally opposed to vertically down the field. And kind of what that does is it gives the running back to eventually be able to read and get out and have options to get vertical, or it gives him cutbacks kind of similar to what he had right here. If you look at it initially, usually it looks like some guys from the defensive line might have possibly had a shot at him. He just did a good job at kind of being able to read that and to be able to evade it. You see he puts a jump cut on him and just able to hit that gap. And as soon as he hits that gap, man, he just is able to accelerate. Let's take a look at this. Just look at that jump cut. Boom. Hit that gap right there. Just a small little amount of space, and just look at the separation right there. Like watching Saquon play, I know I did a film review on Derrick Henry, and both of them really does have, it's like every run could possibly be a home run hitter. But when you're dealing with Saquon in terms of the acceleration and the overall speed, that big playability most definitely takes effect every play. And this goes back to even what I was saying about the Derrick Henry situation. When you're looking at these teams that's so dominant on the ground, you want to watch and see, okay, exactly what is it that makes these teams so much more dominant than other teams? And a lot of it has to do with the blocking. And one thing that I would say about Philadelphia, obviously we know what they do up front with the offensive line, but then I think another aspect of it that kind of doesn't get enough appreciation, and maybe it do, I just don't, it just doesn't fall on my ears, and that's the receiver blocking, from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You look at Devontae Smith engaged with Jair Alexander, and I mean, you look at A.J. Brown for the most part that was able to kind of stay in front of number 20 to allow Saquon to be able to just, maximize on the game more than what he had been had A.J. Brown not gave any effort to try to block him. But like I said, man, just phenomenal acceleration and phenomenal footwork to be able to jump cut, and just phenomenal vision to be able to see the hole, and then phenomenal acceleration just to be able to go 0 to 100 in just the blink of an eye. So right here we got another inside run. So this is just good blocking from the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. You see that they pulled the left guard and the tight end. They kind of pulled them backside to be able to come over here and try to and kind of seal off some blockers right there on number 50 and kind of number 55, and then they kind of just blocked off number 44. And that just left Saquon Barkley with daylight. And then one of the things that you hear me talk about even in the Derrick Henry film when I was breaking down was just talking about what can you do on your own. So obviously when you get a push up front, when your offensive line, because it's only so much that they can do. They can block initially up front and they can probably climb to the next level. But then after that, what are you able to do? Can you make the first play? Can you make the second play better than the first play? And Saquon is one of those guys that can do that. We've seen that on the previous clip, and then we just see that right here. You see the footwork once again, just being able to just make number 20 just be tackling that air. He just does a good job at being able to evade number 20. Like I said, vision for one, just to be able to get in there, to squeeze and close that distance. You see that the guy was on the ground. He was trying to get back up, but Saquon was able to just, be able to close that distance real quick to where he wasn't able to. And then we always talk about when it comes down to running backs, you talk about ball security. Like you always say, like Coach Belichick and them always say, ball security is job security. When you get that ball mid play, you supposed to have the ball at the end of the play as well. So one of the ways to protect the ball as a running back upon contact is being able to drop your pad level and lower your shoulder. Whenever they're having a tackle at your shoulder pads, it's much harder for them to try to be able to rip that ball out opposed to you being up high and them being able to kind of tackle at your waist. So he does a nice job at that right here, being able to make this guy right here miss and then just finishing with low contact, being able to protect the ball. So right here, they running another outside zone where you see the offensive lineman is blocking laterally. So Saquon just does a good job, honestly, at just using his blockers and, just using them to maximize on the yards gain. So you look at the outside guy, he's able to swim underneath the tight end. He's able to make him miss. And then you got number 74 is working on, who does that? That looks like that's Tyrann Mathieu. Let's take another look at that again. Yeah, you got number 74 kind of working against Demario Davis, actually. And then you got Tyrann Mathieu, who was trying to come down to be able to help. But he did a good job at just utilizing number 74 to just get behind him as he was blocking Demario Davis and to kind of just wall off Tyrann Mathieu. And then he was just able to kind of just, run through that little arm tackle. And then once again, like I said, man, ball security is job security. So one way as a ball carrier to be able to secure the ball, for one, is running with the ball, keeping that thing high and tight so they can't pull it out. But then upon contact, you see right here, he drops his pad level, lowers his shoulder, is able to carry the defenders for an additional 2 to 3 yards on this play. So that's why I be loving seeing these plays like from these different angles, because you just really kind of just get a more detailed breakdown of what's going on the play. So right here, you look like you got Philadelphia. They're running the inside zone. You remember on the previous clip where we was talking about the outside zone where the offensive line is blocking horizontally. So right here, you see him getting vertical, and you just see him being able to double team. And just look at the good blocking, man. He was able to just hit that B gap, and after that, he just seen grass. And obviously, man, like I stated early on, this dude acceleration is like next to none. Like, I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, I feel like there's different variations when it comes to running and to speed. You got the acceleration, which is your get off, your startup in a sense, you know what I mean? And then you got your overall top speed, which is what kicks in as you get going. And Saquon has phenomenal both. Like, when we was breaking out film on Derrick Henry, I was talking about how he had phenomenal acceleration, but sometimes the top end speed isn't necessarily there. That's why you've seen a lot of his plays that he ended up breaking, that guys were able to be able to catch him from behind. But the chances of you being able to catch Saquon Barkley from behind is probably next to none. And like I say, man, you got to understand too that these are defensive backs. Like, this is the second level. It's different when you're outrunning defensive linemen to a degree. I know that the National Football League is different. And really just the new age of football, period. You got linebackers that's much more fast and much more athletic. But when it comes to outrunning defensive backs and safeties, guys who are running 4.4s, some of those guys probably running 4.3s, like, and for you to be able to separate like Saquon, that just shows you the speed that this dude has. Like I said, Saquon is almost like he's like that speed car, like a Mustang or a Corvette, where they say, man, you can't put your foot, don't give too much gas, because you give too much gas, man, it can get away from you. And that's what Saquon Barkley is, man. If you give him any green light, especially as much like this, then, man, it's going to result in 65-yard touchdown runs like this one right here. So right here, let's take a moment. Like I said, man, I get that this is a Saquon film, but I think we got to show respect to everybody who contributes to the overall dominance that you see the Philadelphia Eagles putting on week to week on top of Saquon Barkley, and that's the offensive line just as well as the receivers. But for this play right here, man, so let's take a look at the center. So they're gonna have the center right here pull. So he's gonna pull from the center position to be able to get to the outside to kind of seal an outside block for Saquon to be able to get some daylight and to be able to just make what he make happen from it. So let's take a look at that right there. You see the center, he comes on, he pulls, boom, takes on the linebacker head on, and he just gives Saquon Barkley that room. And obviously, man, when you're dealing with Saquon Barkley, it goes back to what can you do on your own. So once again, this is this is one of those on your own plays. You look at the blocking up front. The center was able to pull, bam, there you go your gap, there go your daylight. And you just see right here, once again, he's just able to separate away from the defenders on the second level. Obviously, you see this guy kind of had an angle at him. But like I say, man, like the average person is not able to, the average running back that we see Sunday to Sunday is just not able to separate away from the second level defenders like that. Like I say, man, it's one thing to run away from defensive linemen. And obviously they're fast in their own right. And it's another thing to even be able to run away from linebackers, even though they're much more fast and athletic. But to be able to separate and to outrun corners and safeties, man, that just shows you really how fast this guy really is. So this play just pretty much sums up exactly why the Philadelphia Eagles offense is so hard and is such a hard team to match up with. I mean, so you just look at this play right here. You look at Jalen Hurts, right? So we talk about the ability in terms of players, quarterbacks wise, more so you hear that. But I'd like to use it for other players as well, because anybody who got the ball in their hands and has the possibility of making something happen. So, but one thing you always will hear a lot of experts talking about and analysts when it comes to quarterbacks is, can you make the second play better than the first play? So meaning that, can you extend plays? And obviously with Jalen Hurts, we know that he has the ability to extend plays with his legs if things aren't normally there. You look at Saquon right there. He's in a flat. You look at Hurts. Hurts kind of had his eyes downfield trying to see if he had something down there. Eventually you see Saquon over there calling for the ball. He pretty much over there saying, hey, Jalen, right over here. You see, so he steps up and he sees Saquon sitting right over there in the flats, and he just gets the ball to Saquon right here. And this kind of should have been a minimal gain right there. He kind of probably should have been stopped, but then you see that he does a good job at, upon contact, being able to lower his pass. Once again, like I said, man, ball security, his job security, and as a ball carrier, one way to secure the ball, especially upon contact, is being able to lower your shoulders. And right here, he does a good job at just being able to lower his shoulders, going into the cornerback that looks like Jamel Dean, and just being able to just run through that tackle, and then get an extra 3 to 5 yards. And that's one of the things that's so difficult to deal with when it comes down to Saquon, because it's not just the speed. I feel like we see him running away from defenders so much, and I feel like that's kind of one of the things that we focus in on. But I think one of the things too that he brings to the table also is that physicality. Yeah, he can run away from you. Yeah, he can make you miss, but also too, whenever he needs to, he can pick up those hard, tough yards. And like I say, man, this guy's just an all-around back. I mean, it's not too much of nothing that he cannot do. So these plays right here, man, these are the type of plays that get me going. Yeah, I love to see him separating away from defenses. Yeah, I love to see him jumping over guys' heads backwards. But just that level of physicality, man, I love to see that too, man. That old school bruiser power style back. And it's crazy because the previous clip, I was talking about how I feel like we don't put enough focus onto his power, just because we're so used to seeing him running away from defenders, and we're so used to seeing him being able to just put defenders on skate, have them tackle in air. Right here, you see the downhill running ability as well. You got a 3rd and long situation. Jalen Hurts was looking downfield. Obviously, they probably was sitting back in a 2 high, maybe a cover 4 to take away the deep option. So the only thing they had was the check down at 3rd and 14. They checked the ball down to Saquon, and man, he just lowers his pad level once again. And not only did he lower it the first time, so just look at how he lowered it the first time, and was just kind of able to lower his shoulders and engage with the next defender and kind of just spin off of him. So just look at this pile that he went through. You got the first guy, he sits him down on his butt. Boom, get on the ground, son. Then right here, he's able to spin off of him. This guy tried to stand him up. He was able to slide off of that tackle. And then other guy came, and he was also able to start off of that tackle. But I know he went out of bounds. But the fact that after throwing the ball right there, and you had one white jersey, how many blue jerseys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white jerseys. All those blue jerseys in the area. And the fact that this guy still was on his feet is insane. So right here, we got an outside run. So far, we've seen most of his damage so far just from breaking down film early on. We've seen most of his damage has really been in between the numbers. The only time we really seen him attacking outside was when they threw the ball to him on little check down routes in the flat. So right here, they actually attack outside. Now, once again, I know that this is a Saquon Barkley. And this video is going to be long again, too, because I got to dive into the nuts and the bolts of what makes this team so hard to deal with running the ball other than just Saquon. So pay attention to the center. So you have the center who pulls from his center position right there. I think that's number 61. Yeah, number 61. He pulls from his center position to come out there and get a block on the corner on the outside. Let's take another look at that again. Look at what number 3 is at. The center pulls from the outside to come and get a block to seal the edge. And then after that, it was just a foot race with Saquon Barkley. Saquon just did a good job at just being able to utilize his speed to pick up as many yards as he possibly could on this play. But once again, man, like I said, man, don't get me wrong. Saquon Barkley is phenomenal, man. He is phenomenal, a phenomenal back, explosive, physical at the point of attack when he needs to be, elusive, just an all-around home run hitter. But then also, too, we also got to give kudos to the offensive line and what they're able to do. Like I said, man, just look at the fact that this center was able to pull and just look at him running. Like, he's still running at this point. Like, that just shows you the athlete that he is, but then it also shows you the enthusiasm that he has. You know what I mean? Watching a guy like this shows me that this is a guy that loves football, because how many centers are doing this? Even if they are pulling, once they get to the outside and seal it off and block number 3, they're done at that point. This dude continues to run with Saquon after he done already sealed the edge. He's steady running with Saquon, man. So I just love to see that right there. So as I was breaking down film, I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, you know, we know that what Saquon can do with the ball in his hands. We know what he can do running the ball. We know what he can do whenever he catches the ball, right? But I think an aspect of his game that kind of goes under notice is just because it's not really just catchy to the average eye, but to football guys like myself, I love to see it. And that's blitz pickup. Right here, this is from the Super Bowl. Obviously, you know, Spags like to send blitzes. You know, he send exotic blitzes. He send them from everywhere. Sometimes he'll send all out blitzes, depending on what the down and distance and the situation is. But this is not just one play. Obviously, this play right here, but I've seen him do that over the course of watching Philadelphia throughout the season. I think I've seen him do it in the Rams game in the playoff. And it might have been in the Commanders game, man. And I think that that's something that, you know, obviously is not highlighted just because it isn't that flashy. But to me, man, that is beautiful to see. For him to even recognize, or even for Jalen Hurts to recognize, or even both of them just being on the same page of identifying that, hey, man, I think a blitz is coming from right here. And you get the pass protection on the one guy, but then him being able to step up, because if he doesn't pick up that blitz, man, that's a shot at Jalen Hurts and that pass doesn't happen. But by him being able to pick up that blitz, Jalen Hurts is able to stand tall in the pocket for a little extra time and to be able to deliver that throw. All right, so right here, man, we got another red area possession. You know, like I always say, man, every time I mention the red area, I'm always put an extra emphasis on it just to let you guys know how important it is. When you get in the red area, for one, it's hard to get down there, right? So whenever you get down there, you do want to be able to capitalize off of those trips. And like I say, normally when I talk about gotta have it moments, we always talk about 3rd down and 4th down. But to me, when you're in the red area, every play, every down is a gotta have it down, whether it's 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, or 4th down. So right here, this is a bittersweet touchdown, and I know it was for Saquon Barkley, most definitely, considering the history that he has with the New York Giants and how they kind of let him walk and chose Daniel Jones over him. So right here, he just shows utter determination, and once again, it just showcases the physicality. You know me, I love to see him making guys miss. I love to see him separating from defenses, but one of the things I love the most too is just to be able to see physical football. So obviously, we know in these situations you get the tush push, but having a two-headed monster to say, okay, we can do the tush push, but then we also can just hand that thing off to Saquon and let him just do what Saquon does. So you see right here, initially, it was kind of a stop up front, but once again, like I said, kind of similar to Derrick Henry, that once you get to him, you want to make sure that you wrap those legs up, because obviously that's the source for a lot of his power, obviously, right? So if you try to tackle him up high, kind of like how they did right here, and don't wrap up his legs, he's still able to keep pushing forward, and you utilize his leg strength to push forward on top of the offensive line. It's going to lead to physical, hard-earned touchdowns, just like this one right here. And going back to what I said early on in the video, when you get into the red area, it's much easier to just run the ball in opposed to trying to have to throw the ball in those tight, confined spaces. All right, right here, so we got another inside run. So right here, you seen on the previous play where they pulled the center to be able to kind of get out front and set the edge for him. So on this play right here, they pulled a tight end, which we see that that's a trademark of what they do offensively. They pulled a tight end. He's able to come and seal the edge. And then you look at number 11, he kind of just took himself out of position. And after that, once again, when you give Saquon a lot of green grass to work with, then, you know, that's always a bad combination. But then, like I say, you got to look at the contact balance too. Just look at that every play, for the most part, there's always a guy that has a opportunity to bring him down, whether that be in the backfield, whether they be in the second level, or whether they be the last line of defense. And it's just, he's always able to make a guy miss. And I mean, sometimes it ain't necessarily got to be just him being able to just juke him. It's just him just being able to stay on his feet and just kind of run through arm tackles. Like I said, man, it's like he's like, same thing I said about Derrick Henry. He's the equivalent of when we talk about explosive and dangerous receivers. Those type of receivers are the guys that can take a 3-yard slant to the house for a touchdown, a 5-yard hitch to the house for a touchdown, a 3 or 5-yard out route to the house for a touchdown. They can take something simple and turn it into this big extravagant play. And that's the same thing with Saquon Barkley. Like, when you give him good blocking and when you give him running lanes and when he's able to kind of just get into open field, man, he's a very rough dude to bring down, whether that be him just lowering his shoulder pads and running through guys like we've seen, or whether that be him just being able to make guys miss, or whether that be him just getting so bored, I guess, saying, man, you know, I'm going to try something different, and just being able to jump over guys' heads backwards. So right here, we got another outside run again. You had Jalen Hurts under center, a single back, which was Barkley. You got a handoff, and he kind of just bounced it to the outside. And once again, man, you just see the physicality. Like I said, man, I love to see him jumping over guys. I love to see him even stiff arming guys. I love to see him outrunning guys. But one of the things I love to see most is a running back who can drop their pad level and get those tough yards. And he's able to do that right here. So you see Devontae Smith does a good job at kind of being able to really just set the edge, in a sense, on the block with his block on number 24. And then it goes back to what I say early on. What can you do on your own? So right here, you got Devontae Smith with the block. So now it's up to me to try to make something happen. And that's which is what he does right here. You look at the guy on the outside that had a shot at trying to being able to get to him, but he kind of was just really out leveraged in a sense. And then Saquon just did a good job at kind of sticking that arm out there to stiff arm him. And you just look at how he just annihilates the corner that was coming over the top. Let's take another look at that again, man. Like I say, this is just physical football at its finest. Look at the corner number 22, just bam, made him go out of bounds, man. And then the crazy thing about it was the fact that he almost was able to stay in bounds and to tight rope it into the end zone for a touchdown. Let's take another look at this, man. Boom, man. That's beautiful. That's physical football at its finest. And that's another thing that makes Saquon so great, is the fact that more times than not, if you can put him in the right position, especially if he's coming downhill, but sometimes even if it's in the backfield, the first person that gets to him is not going to bring him down. When you're dealing with backs like Saquon, backs like Derrick Henry, backs that are physical runners, that's either physical or that's very elusive and able to make guys miss, the only way to attack those type of backs, man, is that we have to rally to the football as a defense. We have to utilize tackling as a team aspect opposed to just individual, because if we're relying on one person to be able to tackle Saquon Barkley, we're going to have a rough day with being able to contain him. So we have to make sure that play after play, that at least we're able to get 9 and maybe even 10 hats to the ball to try to limit what he can do once he has the ball in his hand. So this is another one of those plays that's an embodiment of why the Philadelphia Eagles offensively, if you're a defense, that's a hard team to match up with, just because of the multitude of ways that they can hurt you. So you got Saquon. Obviously, we know that Saquon can run in between the numbers. He can run outside the numbers. We know that he can run power style. We know that he can run finesse style. And then when you take into consideration that he can contribute in the pass game. So we're going to use like an example like Derrick Henry. And it's not saying that he can't. It's just really not necessarily asked of him. If you think about him contributing into the pass game, more times than not, it's going to be possibly just screenplays, or it's going to be screenplays or just check down routes, right? So it's just him getting the ball and being able to just make something happen after the ball is in his hands, but it's not really going to be anything vertically stemming down the field. So obviously we seen early on with Saquon being able to do what he did against Green Bay. And then once again, we got the same thing right here against Jacksonville, right? And like I say, it just puts so much stress on a defense to know that, okay, now we got to deal with covering a back that can get down the field and make plays over the top of the defense, especially my linebacker. I don't want to task my linebacker with trying to cover that guy. So in certain situations, you might say, okay, well, let me replace that backer for a corner. Now, if you do that, now they'll check to just run the ball now because you took one of your bigger bodies off the field. So they're just a very hard team to match up with. So right here, you just see him pretty much just really run a backside fade, kind of similar to what he ran early on. He did a good job at just, trying to attack the inside shoulder of the linebacker to try to create that space. Now, I wish we could have seen the route a little bit better. The linebacker was saying that he pushed off, which I highly doubt. I feel like most defensive players, once they get beat, they always revert back to just saying that they were pushed off. But once again, this was a perfectly thrown ball from Jalen Hurts, as perfect as it can get, thrown to the outside shoulder. Saquon just did a good job at being able to track the ball, going over to his outside shoulder and being able to catch the ball. And then once again, having the wherewithal to be able to make sure that you got both feet in to secure the touchdown catch. All right, man. So we all are familiar with this play right here, man. We gotta have a situation, a 3rd and 6. And once again, like I stated early on in the video, matter of fact, that was the previous clip when I was talking about we seen how he was able to contribute into the pass game in terms of just being able to go into the flats. But then we seen the options and the times that he had to get vertically down the field. He was able to do that. But right here, once again, this was another one of those just check down routes in the flats that really was supposed to have been stopped for not even the first down. You look at right here, the corner does a good job at just being able to drive downhill, closing the space between him and Saquon. And if he would have been able to make the tackle right there, and even possibly right there, that wouldn't have resulted in a first down. But like I said, man, Saquon with the ball in his hand in space, it's almost like Leonardo da Vinci whenever he is making that paint or that Picasso. It's just like it's perfection, man. When you get the ball to this dude's hands in space, you're getting ready to witness something extravagant more times than not. And right here, man, he just showcases that. He just able to make the first guy miss right there. Boom, he just ran through the arm tackle. He was able to spin off of him and then just was able to jump over the guy head. Now, I've seen, man, watching football, I've seen plenty hurdles. I'm talking about from the high school level to the collegiate level to the NFL level. I've seen plenty hurdles. I mean, you look at the Jerome Simpson front flip. That was one of the wildest hurdles I ever seen. The Jerome Simpson front flip when he was able to jump over that guy head and for the touchdown. And that was even extravagant. I remember that was the talk of the town. But just think about this play as well. To be able to jump over this guy's head backwards. And think about it. Let me show you guys something. So look at where the corner position. He's really still up high when he's trying to tackle Saquon. Like, look at this. Look at how up high he is. It's not like he was diving for Saquon's legs, dude. He was still up high trying to tackle Saquon. And Saquon was still able to jump over this dude's head as he was almost pretty much standing upright. And if that's not pure athleticism, man, I have no idea what is, man. When you look at Saquon, he just looks real twitchy. He just looks real prone to just break one every single time he touches the ball, man, whether it's an inside run, outside run, whether it's just a simple little check down route, whether that's him releasing and running a vertical route downfield. He just has that big play potential. Every time that he touches the ball, I just feel like the defense and even the crowd are just holding their breath because they're waiting to see something extravagant. And this was one of those plays right there, man. This play right here will go down in history. You know, whenever I have grandkids one day, these are the plays this is a play that my grandkids would be like, man, Daddy, that was insane. Like, and I can be like, yes, sir. I watched that live, man. That right there was crazy, man. But, man, so just like I did the Derrick Henry video, man, like I said, I wanted to get into the nuts and bolts. And that's the whole reason why I started doing what I'm doing in terms of being able to study film. I want to just really break down and decipher why these guys that we talk about in terms of these players are so great, and just really be able to explain it to you guys as well, to really just see why these guys are so great. And just like I said, just get down to the nuts and bolts and get into the things that you don't really necessarily see. So I know that with these videos right here with my running backs, they're going to be a lot longer than my other ones, simply because other than the quarterback and the center, the running back touches the ball the next most. So obviously you're going to be able to have more film to work with, and especially when you have guys making plays like this and like Derrick Henry. So stay tuned. I do got a part 2 coming as well. But if you guys did enjoy this video, man, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you click on that post notification bell where you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Matter of fact, I'll see y'all with the part 2 to this.